taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast for May 2nd, 2020. This is your source for news, leaks, and insights about games in the gaming industry, the Saturday edition of the show. My name is Ash, and I'm here as always with Cybsidian.
Hello.
I'm not going to lie to you, today kind of sucks. You guys always appreciate when we're candid, and so there's something going on right now that is really a mess, and a lot of you are very aware of it. Now, we want to kind of rip into the people that are behind this. But we also have to be careful because they are abusing a very vulnerable system that, and going after. They're basically abusing copyright and copyright takedowns to censor critique and censor even just information being spread about this. There were some YouTubers larger than us who got not just copyright claims on their videos about this particular issue, which is the copyright claim system. That's where, if you put a song in a video that's copyrighted, they don't necessarily take your video down, but they might divert some of the revenue. They might ban, they might make it not viewable. They might say it's not viewable. Or anything like that. But that's a copyright claim. That's different from a copyright strike, which is where somebody actually puts in a DMCA takedown, which is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It's this law that governs copyrighted material on the internet. You can do a DMCA takedown, force a website to take down your content if they have it up there without your permission or a license to it or whatever. And so if YouTube receives a DMCA takedown request for your channel, you get what's called a copyright strike. You get 3 copyright strikes. Your channel's gone. It's gone. It is deleted. And if you get, I don't know if it's just one or if it's when you get the second one, you get restrictions placed on your channel. I think one copyright strike limits your ability to live stream.
You get restrictions whenever you get a new one, and then those restrictions hang around for a little while.
Yeah,
and then it pops up again whenever you get a second one, and then they eventually go away.
They do, yeah. Like they go away after 3 months. You have to do something called copyright school, which is just the lamest sounding thing I've ever heard. So it's but it's a mess because we got a big company in the gaming industry that is going after anybody who talks about this particular issue. So yeah.
Now I'm like, bring it on, but not all of us can do that.
Well, it's a difficult thing because you can dispute a copyright strike, but you have to completely dox yourself. And anyway, there are the people that are doing this. They know there is no way they think these are legit. They're using copyright takedowns on material that contains none of their IP. But it's just like literally just people talking into their camera about the issue or about the situation. Not even necessarily...
Heels versus Babyface was one of them. He doesn't even use thumbnails. Like he makes his own thumbnails by scribbling on a little whiteboard with some markers, and then he holds it up to the camera, and that's his thumbnail. Mm-hmm. He's pretty good. He could be a little silly from time to time. He's definitely like gone a little overboard when it comes to certain criticisms, but that's kind of it. That's his style, right? So it's like it's his style. If you don't like his style, then obviously you don't watch him. And it is played up for the camera a little bit, but
I mean, yeah, like you may like or dislike what he has to say. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion.
What he's doing is not illegal. Like, what he's doing is totally fine.
What he's doing is perfectly legal. It's perfectly legal and free to criticize or talk
it's
about.
the heart. It's the heart of what YouTube is. YouTube is supposed to be you talking into a camera, doing you things. Now, YouTube doesn't like it when you are, relying on other people's content or when you're cutting into things, and there's legitimate, debate to be had there. But this is what the whole concept of YouTube was supposed to be. You go outside with a skateboard, you film yourself, and that's you. That's what that's what they had originally wanted on YouTube. Now they want Apple TV, but whatever.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
so
just to, I mean, how is it legal to ban someone for talking about? It's not. The company, the Megacorp that we referenced in the title, because they are a Megacorp. We're definitely getting into cyberpunk territory. They're doing unlawful takedowns, and they are doing it through this third-party shell company that's not really a company. It's just like this shield they're trying to hide behind, and it's all garbage. But they're censoring criticism. They're censoring information about what happened, because one of their, how do we want to talk about this one? So they have a sub entity that created a product, and a bunch of stuff about that product got leaked. And so at first they were just going after the leaked footage, which is perfectly legit. But now they're going after anyone who talks about it, which is not an infringement of copyright. Even if you use screenshots from it, it's fair use. But
it's in the public eye now, so technically it's this thing that if it's in the public eye and it's of public interest, most countries have this rule that once it enters into that realm, it's now considered public domain, and you can talk about it if it's newsworthy. If you're having an affair, with somebody and you're a nobody, that affair is not something that is technically newsworthy that can be written about in a local newspaper if you don't do something. That's called blackmail. However, if you're a public figure and you're a politician or you're in some kind of a public position, whether it's the head of some major company that's a public company, or if you're some kind of a public speaker of some sort, musician, preacher, whatever, some kind of person that is seen and viewed by lots of people, especially families, then you do not have that protection of anonymity. Under again, not every law is the same, not every country is the same law, but these are just generalities. So
well, I mean, regardless, you're allowed to criticize something that somebody has created.
Mm-hmm.
You choose to write an article or a book or make a video and put it out there. It is subject to criticism. That is why fair use exists. Fair use exists to protect, basically to prevent people from abusing copyright, to prevent criticism of their work, because free and open criticism of your work needs to be preserved. That's why fair use exists. But even beyond fair use, Heels put up a video talking about this that did not use any of their screenshots, did not use any of their material. He was just talking about the issue. And they copyright struck that video, took it down. So he's got a strike on his channel. He's got some restrictions on his channel now, and it's completely bogus. And I guarantee the company that gave the strike knows that it's bogus. But what are they doing? They're intimidating. They're trying to use what's sometimes called lawfare, basically, relying on the idea that it's you're going to feel it's too expensive to fight back in court or whatever, too much stress, whatever. But I mean, that's going to bite them in the butt, because he has said that he is going to sue. And
he's not the only one. There's been
there's others too.
A couple friends of the channel, whether it be upper echelon or some other people that we have been in contact with. They're saying clearly, like, look, this has gone too far. This is a line in the sand. You have these big corporations, these big news journalist companies that can write and post, screen caps and do all this kind of stuff, and they're protected somehow from commenting on the news and whatnot, because they're a big corporation, because they have friends, because they have power and influence. And yet us Joe Blows make, some of these one of the people who got taken down, he had less than 100,000 subs. And again, he didn't show anything. He just talked about it. It started to trend, and they took him down. And it's like, okay, well, if we're gonna play this game now, then this is free game now at this point.
Well, this
Like,
is
everybody's got to play by everybody needs to play by the same rules. So we're going to take this to court, and we are going to win, which they will. There's no way that this is going to stand up unless you have the worst lawyer of the century, as we've seen with a bunch of other very high profile cases on YouTube recently. As long as you can get it up in court and you have a decent lawyer, and I really hope they hire the one that just recently did or they're still finalizing this one lawsuit that's just it's absolutely setting a thing. It's making it like they're really setting precedent, and it's cross country too. It's America versus the UK, as far as some of it goes. But yeah, this is precedents are being set already between the, what was it, H3 lawsuit. Was it Jim Sterling who also did another lawsuit? I'm pretty sure it was Jim Sterling who did another lawsuit. They're winning, and so this will definitely not go in their favor. Now, the reason why they're using this big Megacorp S, as we like to call them, they are using this third-party ghost company to do these takedowns. But this third-party ghost company still they're still getting paid from, and they're still being connected to the S. So they're not going to get away with this, because it's already been dug through. Like, people have already dug through, found a whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of data about what's going on here. And yeah, at this point, it's like, nope, no, this is it. By the way, for those of you who've been around for a while, y'all knew I saw this coming for ages now. I it was the shift in leadership. It was the change in the people calling the shots. It was the change in the bulk of the company staff at this big mega corporation, that a few years ago they transferred all of their holdings to America. They laid off a ton of people from their original home country. Those people are now disgusted with this. I was talking with somebody last night, and can't really give too much info away about them, but they were out at a at a dinner with a couple people from this older company, and they were talking about the situation, and they were reminiscing. They're like, if this was still a company that was from this country, from Japan, if this was still a company from here, when this thing happened, we would have held a presser, we would have bowed to the camera and said, we apologize. This was our mistake, because we let this get out. We trusted people who we shouldn't have, or maybe we didn't treat them appropriately. Maybe work life was whatever. But we would have gotten in front of a camera, apologized, and you can tell, you could tell from basically the reaction of everybody, that if this mega corporation had gotten in front of a camera, apologized, said, look, a lot of bad things happened here. Some of it's our fault, some of it's not. But for the things that are our fault, we apologize, and we will do better. Right away, this narrative would have been 180 degrees in the other direction. Right away, people would have been like, okay, well, they realize that they made a mistake, so, might not buy the game, but it's good to know that they realize that they've made some mistakes here. Instead, what do you have? And this was his point. It's like, It's like you have this. They're going after people. They're attacking people. They're doing these things that like it's an insulting. It's insulting to our memory for those that built this company, and for the original people that built this product, and slowly built this company up over the years, and it's not that company anymore. And again, I saw this back, well over 2 years ago, because the direction that they had been heading in, the things that they were saying, the people that they were getting in, these, I've talked about um, this corporate phenomena of people failing upwards. You can have somebody who gets into running a multi-million dollar company, they can bankrupt that company, and then they'll be hired by an even bigger company. And then they'll bankrupt that one, and they can be hired by an even bigger company, and then they'll bankrupt that one. And you're just sitting there going, well, how is this person still getting a job? How? There's another breaking story this past few days where somebody did something highly illegal, something that if they were in a different country when they had done this, they would be in jail right now. If they had been if they had been in England when they did this, they would be in jail right now. If they had been in Australia, if they had been in Canada, they'd probably be in jail right now. But they just so happened to be in a place in a way where they could get away with this. And it's like this isn't the first time they've been doing this. They've been doing this for years. And it turns out that they just keep on getting hired up the chain. Now it finally like caught up with them, and they're now finally like in big trouble, and they probably won't be getting a job, but they might be getting one of their old jobs back. And it's like, what? Why? What? Like, hey, you did something illegal. You hurt a lot of people. You know what? We'll bring you back. Like, what is this? What is this? I don't understand. Is it just lazy leadership, or is it like absolute stupidity? I can't figure it out. Like, do these people all like get into like, I don't know, I'm gonna say some.
Yeah, well, I mean, I
But
understand your
it's just
frustration
like
with
it's
that
like
for
why?
sure. Yeah, it
But
doesn't
this
make
is
sense. But I mean, in general, like, um, it's just a yeah, it's a very messy situation. I'm seeing lots of comments about this in the chat right now. Um, yeah. By the way, we hate having to dance around what we're talking about in terms of not specifically naming who or what we're talking about.
you
Only
all
reason
get it.
you know who we're talking about. You know. But the only reason we're doing that is because we're not in a position to spearhead any kind of legal response to this. There are
Well,
other
there's other
channels
people who
doing
are,
that, and if we
yeah.
we're keeping a close eye on this, and we're going to. It's just like if we got a copyright strike, legit or not, we lose our ability to live stream, and we do this podcast twice a week plus a bunch of other streams. It would be very bad for us. That's the only reason we're doing that. We hate having to dance around this. We really do. But we are keeping an eye on it, and if there's like because there's been, I can think of, there's been like at least 5 channels struck now. I think more, but I know for sure of 4, including one who didn't even talk about the issue, but he talked about the fact that the other channels got struck. Like, he didn't talk about what the other channels were talking about. He was talking about the fact that they got struck because of what they were talking about, and he got a copyright strike. And we're talking strikes. So it's a mess. It's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
This they're not going to get away with this. But just until we know what's going on, we do have to be a little bit careful. So that's the reason for that. We're going to get on to some other topics here right away, though. But
Sorry for the echoing. I think that was me. No, I should have. I think that's fixed now. But yeah, overall, there's a couple other things that I want to touch on. So this big corporation said that they had sent out their corporate hounds and their advanced security forces, and that they had combed the streets with the droids and the drones, and the stormtroopers have reported back that they caught the dastardly people that did this, and they are certainly not connected to them in any way, shape, or
Talking
form.
about the leakers now.
Yes, we're talking about the leakers now. Do not believe this story. It is, as far as every connection I have, not true. And you'd say, well, why would they lie about that? Well, because the narrative right now is that this leak happened because the company's bad. The company is a pain to work for. They treat people extremely badly. They've lost, most of their company to a revolving door, and it's gotten so bad that people just don't want to work for them anymore. Like, nobody in the industry wants to work for them anymore, and so that they've been forced to like go outside of their industry and hire people from other industries. This is the current narrative. Well, if it turns out that, they're not connected to them, it's just a bunch of hackers that were trying to ruin everybody's day. If that's the new narrative, then a whole bunch of people will go, oh, well, then this is okay that that this evil mega corporation is treating people like this, and that they're not caring anymore. Because, I mean, really, when you think about it, it's not their fault. So therefore, it's unacceptable. Right? That would be the thought. That would be the new prevailing concept, the new prevailing idea.
Which of course is garbage, but it's as Time Bean says here, like the leak is irrelevant at this point. It is their subsequent actions that are just completely unacceptable. And it was totally fine for them to be going around doing takedowns on the actual leaked content, like the actual stuff itself that was stolen. That is fully within their rights, but they've definitely gone way above and beyond that. So there's another comment I was looking for here. The Dorian Gray says 14 channels. Interesting. Like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Like, they've just been gone. They've gone completely crazy.
They've gone nuclear, and they're just taking things out indiscriminately, trying desperately to take things and to break things down. Like, I can't believe some of the size of some of these people that they're trying to take out right now. Like, it makes little to no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, because if this goes to court, they're going to lose in court. The content creators that they're attacking are going to win, because this is cut and dried, black and white abuse of the copyright law. Like, there's no copyright infringement happening. I mean, I don't know. Maybe in one or two cases they could argue that, you used our screenshot, but that's still fair use. So, yeah, go figure. All right. So we're going to move on from that. We have been talking about it a lot more freely on our Discord server, though. Definitely check out our Discord server. The link is in the description below. It's a great place where you can chat with us and other Triple S community members. It's a great community. A lot of people have been very supportive, through all of this and talking about all of this. Lots of great discussions happen there about a variety of other things as well. So check out the Discord. Lots of crazy stuff happens. Lots of good stuff happens. Some good friendships are made. Check it out. Links in the description below. By the way, if you haven't already, please do slam that like button right here on YouTube. Tells YouTube that you appreciate this content, and that's especially important right now with everything going on, with isolation and quarantines and all that, and revenues being down. Anything that can increase the reach of this content is very much appreciated. Plus, we just like knowing that you like this content, and it's good to see that you appreciate what we're doing here. All right, some happier and more fun things to talk about for the rest of the show today. We're going to talk about Cyberpunk 2077. Their rating in Australia has been revealed, and then we have the Assassin's Creed Valhalla trailer that came out. So on Wednesday we talked about the reveal that they were doing, which was like a live Photoshop painting session. It was really interesting. That's how they revealed the setting of the new Assassin's Creed game, and then the game's trailer dropped the next day, so we're going to discuss that. We want to hear your thoughts about it. So yeah, let us know in the chat. Let us know in the chat today what you thought of the Assassin's Creed Valhalla trailer. If you're interested in the game, what you think of it. I don't know, looks interesting. Plus, we're going to talk about Summer Game Fest, which is something that's actually going on already. I think it's already started. Which is it's a several month long online gaming festival thing. That's I'm not entirely sure what it is, but we're gonna talk about it, read about it, talk about who's behind this and what's going on. But it seems like a good thing, and it seems like something else that has stepped in to fill the void of E3 being non-existent this year. All right, but first off, let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077. Somebody earlier, I was going to read your comment, but anyway, it scrolled past, but somebody earlier said the upside-down thumbnail today is oddly satisfying. Well, I'm glad you enjoy it, and yeah, it's
still wigging me out every time I look at it.
It's kind of a subtle joke, because...
my head's like, what?
Oh, by the way, just saying, Eriton says, Ash and Cyb, definitely come back to this topic once it blows over and you guys can discuss it freely without having YouTube's sword hanging above your heads. Absolutely, we will. We are not going to let this go. And once, like I said, we have to tread carefully for the moment, but that doesn't mean we're going to not address this. I mean, we are going to blow this thing as wide open as we can. Because it's ridiculous. This culture of companies bullying small content creators is absolutely unacceptable and has to stop. A lot of you are familiar with what happened to Supmato. We were involved in that situation in a supportive role for him. He was a great content creator and got completely shut down, destroyed. His online life, his YouTube channel was destroyed by a big gaming company who didn't like that he was talking about their stuff in a way they didn't like. And so they trumped up some bogus nonsense about him hacking into, like, he only ever reported, we won't go into the details, but it was ridiculous. But they did the same thing. They abused YouTube's copyright system to claim tons and tons of his videos. And so I do hold YouTube partly responsible, because their system is just ripe for abuse, and they're not doing anything about it. They're doing nothing to protect the people that create the content on the platform. Of course, as Cyb said earlier, they seem more interested in being, a major TV network rather than being the YouTube anymore. But if they don't smarten up, they will be replaced as soon as a replacement comes along.
Yeah, it's pretty mental to me that they do this. But what's more mental to me is that, I mean, you got to pick your enemies. Like, you really need to pick your enemies. And there's a couple of fights that I can guarantee you will never win. You'll never win against a man with principles, like unbreakable principles. You will break yourself as much as you will break yourself in an attempt to sink him as well. And sometimes that works, but the cost will always be high. The other group, an angry woman, somebody else, you just, there's lots of things lots of old, I think there's many poems and stories and that warn of, like, a woman scorned. You don't do that either. You don't do that either. The other thing you don't do is you don't go after nerds as a whole, like collectively. You just You just don't go after nerds. It might take 20 years or something like that. But at some point, one of those nerds is either going to be your doctor, your accountant, or your boss. In the case of a lot of these nerds that built gigantic companies, and when you suddenly realize that they're your boss, well, things aren't going to go over very well for you. Like, it's like that Marty McFly thing, right? It's like, yeah. They go to the future and he's working for them. it's like, that's
Yeah.
that's an interesting outcome.
It's true, and the collective will of the internet is impossible to overcome. These companies, I mean, it's ridiculous that even just
If
the fact that they were trying to suppress the leak anyway only made people more interested in it.
it's mental to me that they even tried. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, have you learned nothing from like Rule 34? If you learned absolutely nothing, the most important the most important thing you can take from Rule 34 is that don't try to stop it. You can ignore it. That's probably the best thing to do. You can bypass it. You can do a lot of things. You can passively go after them, for pushing certain things too far, doing a lawsuit here and there in the background. But for the love of God, whatever you do not openly say, "How dare you?" And definitely don't make some grandiose, like, standing thing saying, "Well, I will fight this, and until this has been rectified, there will be no more content from my thing, because how dare they?" It's like, yeah, that's not
The
gonna.
only way to that's a great way to guarantee that more of it
I, and
gets created, but
and I know companies. So I've known gaming companies and a couple of writers and a couple of other people, some minor stars and like D-list stars and whatever, and they discovered some of this Rule 34 stuff that was centered around them, and they made a big stink about it. And then they went on and said, "I'm refusing to work until this is scrubbed off the internet." And they never worked again. Why? Because, well, first of
that's
all,
just impossible.
it's impossible. Second of all, you're trying to, again, the best thing to do is to ignore it. Like, if you're ever a target of Rule 34, you basically just shrug your shoulders and you go, well, I mean, if people can be into rubber chickens, then, I mean, you know, who like, people are weird, and you just turn around and you don't let it bother you, because, you know, what's that
It's
what's
just
that
literally
term?
the only thing you can do, really. It's
I
just
think do you remember that old show Third Rock from the Sun,
oh yeah.
where they're like aliens? I think this is where I'm picking it up from. The teenage alien was basically like tile flooring. You know, it can raise my attention, so to speak. If tile
No, you're
flooring
thinking of
can,
Buffy.
am I thinking of
You're
Buffy?
thinking of
Okay,
Xander off of Buffy. Although
okay,
the kid on Third Rock from the Sun, he was a horn dog too.
but it's like if I mean, just remember that's out there. Tile flooring can get people interested,
I remember that
and
scene.
if
It's
that's the
like
case,
they were. I don't know. I don't know why I remember this episode so vividly, but Xander and Cordelia were like they they were in some military complex or something, and she's like, "Does looking at guns make you want to have sex?" And he's like, "I'm a 17-year-old boy. Looking at linoleum makes me want to have sex." Like,
oh yes, that's the line. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, just have that in your mind and just walk away from it, right? Like, you just walk away from it, because there's nothing you can do. It's on them, right? And as long as they're not, doing anything directly illegal or something that you can sue for, just ignore it, man. Just walk away from it, because Blizzard tried that with the whole Overwatch thing, and now I think it's like the number, it's like in the top 10 list, and it has been for like the last few years. In fact, it's so prevalent that long after Overwatch gets closed down and you can't play the game anymore, and it's just a thing of the past, there will be stuff online still being viewed, still highly popular because of that. Congratulations, you created a new immortal meme, right? And it's like just walk away, man. Just turn around, go the other direction, because this, you can't win this fight. And for the life of me, nerds are responsible for this. So you never fight a nerd on this stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's like ugh.
We
Anyways.
rule your world. It's literally the truth. I mean, the internet, all the big software companies, those are nerd creations. All right. Anyway, getting back to Cyberpunk 2077, and speaking of ratings and censorship and all of that stuff. So
Yeah, this is the jump that I was wanting, because like a lot of people were worried that this game was going to be banned in Australia. A lot of people were like, "No, Cyberpunk 2077 is so awesome. It's so rad. It's so dark. It's filled with things that obviously most people would never ever 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 do in their real life, because, it's insane. But it's so crazy that it was going to be banned in Australia, because, if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that if a young person sees somebody, have blades come out of their arm and then chop somebody up into pieces, and then, hack into a mega corporation and upload a consciousness, that is totally something that those kids will do in reality. That is 100% a thing that
well,
happens.
yeah.
So obviously there was a lot of fear that this would be that Cyberpunk 2077 would be canceled, would be banned, and would be unplayable in Australia. We are happy to announce that the Australian rating board has put out their info. The game is getting a high rating, 18 plus, I believe, which it absolutely deserves. I don't think
Yeah,
15-year-olds should be playing this. I don't think
R18
16-year-olds
plus,
should be. Yeah, I don't think 16-year-olds should be playing this. I don't think most 17-year-olds should be playing this. But the message has come out. It will not be banned in Australia. This is good news, because if it's not going to be banned in Australia, then it probably won't be banned anywhere aside from a handful of like crazy lunatic authoritarian countries. We still don't know if it's going to make it in China or not. There is a lot of crazy stuff to this game. We've gone over what's been happening there. The current situation might end up causing them to end up censoring this, as far as like, the game's release in that country. So we don't really know how the ratings board is going to handle this. Is it going to be more like Hollywood films, or is it going to be treated more like mainstream video games, or how is that going to fall in? And then I think we're still waiting on Germany. Germany is the other one that's usually still up in the air. So Polly's 911 with the super chat. All I know that Drama Snowflake's going to fake melt for views over mature ratings. 2077 going to over mature things in 2077 that are going to allow us. Still, the game is going to be awesome, 100%. So what he's saying there is that despite the ratings, despite the fake outrage, which is, oh yeah, it's going to happen, because I mean, it always happens with these games. It's like Grand Theft Auto has been around for a while, and I know of a single story where somebody admitted, and there was a clear connection between the game and what somebody did, and it was like it didn't. I think it was a kid who stole a garbage truck and tried to drive off with a garbage truck, and he got like a couple of blocks or something like that before he like realized that this was a really terrible idea, and he went to jail for a very long time. But well, not like a long time, like an adult. He had some pretty heavy juvie sentences, and then that was about it. Um, yeah, I really don't think that this is going to end up causing too much of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes. So the rating, it got the rating for high impact themes, sex, violence, and references to sexual violence. It is. It's interesting that drug use isn't mentioned. Apparently, the classification board in Australia is particularly sensitive to drug use in games. We had Daisy and We Happy Few both had issues there because of drug use or drugs in the game. Yeah, so I don't know if that's just... I assumed that there would be a lot of that in Cyberpunk, but it's not mentioned here. Of course, we talked about the Brazilian rating on Wednesday, and yeah, so it's going to get a high rating around the world, but we're glad that our Australian friends are going to be able to play this game legally and freely, as long as you're of age to buy it. So while you're hanging around upside down, eating your Vegemite, you can play some Cyberpunk 2077 and enjoy it. And yeah, that's the subtle...
Oh, that's why it's upside down. Oh,
that's why I put the thumbnail upside down, which someone earlier said was oddly satisfying. It was just kind of a subtle joke. We have several. We have quite a few.
That definitely went over my head.
We have quite a few listeners from Australia. I hope you guys appreciate the joke. But we're glad you all will be able to play the game. We have some listeners from New Zealand as well, and I don't know what things are like there as far as ratings and restrictions on games and stuff. I'll have to ask somebody. Anyway, but yeah, so mature themes. It's good to see that it's really not it's not getting banned or censored. Which, I mean, I don't know that it's, aside from some innovation they're doing with kind of the, I guess what you might subtly call the romance scenes in the game with motion capture and first person and all of those things. I don't think the content is much worse than your average GTA or anything like that. I mean, haven't played the game yet to know that for certain, but yeah, I mean, definitely not for kids, but absolutely, something that should be out there. And that's the thing with art, censorship. I'm not against having a rating thing to say, okay, here's the kind of content you're getting into if you choose to play this game. Okay, that's fine with me. But when they start restricting it because they think they need to be your parent, that's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's if you don't like it, don't play it. Anyway, on kind of a similar note, so we have okay, well, I'll explain. Not really a similar note, but we had the reveal trailer for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I asked for some of your comments, and there's a few here that were way back in the chat, so I'm going to read just a few of these, and then we'll give our reactions to it. Sword Sister says, it looks dumb. Sorry, Assassin's Creed fans. That's fair. Desane Aratin says, so excited for Aussies. So that's about the previous topic. Yeah, we're happy for you. I was concerned that some of our Australian friends might not be able to play the game.
I'm just throwing this out here because there's a conversation happening in the chat. So there's a particular extracurricular activity that you'll be doing in Cyberpunk 2077, or you have the opportunity to do in Cyberpunk 77, and there's some debate whether that's going to be in third person or first person. Originally it was supposed to be in all third person, but then they came out and kind of confirmed that it was going to be in first person, which is really kind of weird because how is that going to play out as far as first person head tracking,
especially with those of you who deal with motion sickness.
Yeah, especially with that. But and I've made this kind of realization that the worst thing that could come out of this is that if developers from Steam, CD Projekt Red, and BioWare all got together and made this gritty, realistic, hyper virtual first-person reality video game, and so you have the first personness of the Half-Life game, you have the gritty, raw thing that's happening in Cyberpunk, and then you have the conversation options that happen in BioWare games, where you're just standing there talking with this companion character that you've been having fun with for a while now, and he starts telling you about his dead mom, and you have a conversation option of being like, huh, dead mom, guess guess she was too fat, saying some kind of stupid joke where you're like, oh no, that's not really my option. Or it's like, oh man, pat him on the shoulder. That's your other option, and you select that, and then you're locked into this scene that then takes place where it's some happy times, and you're like, no, this was not what I picked. Yeah. For those of you who are getting the joke, this is a callback to options in Dragon Age 2, where it was like, oh man, you're sad.
You go to comfort somebody, and then
the next thing you know,
you're in bed with them. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not like that. Hopefully it's more intentional.
Yeah, but
if you choose to do that.
Having that done in first person would be like, I mean, I would just flat out not have any male characters in my party at any point whatsoever. No.
Mm-hmm. By the way, but those of you who are in Australia, I mean, let us know. I've always been curious how do you get it done without falling to the ceiling?
For crying out loud!
Let me know on Discord. All right, so Game Notes says that
what would be a weird, crazy thing to have in a sci-fi game would be to have this maniacal cult-like enemy that believe that you can only live on the top side of planets, according to what they have this concept of top side, because living on this upside down, living on the bottom side of these worlds would be like a bad thing. So therefore they only inhabitate the top, like
inhabitate
20%.
Yeah, okay. So they live on top of the planet. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
I'm following.
Yeah, because because it's like it goes against, like, and you can imagine this, right? Like there's some people that they're just so backwards and hickish that they're like living upside down. Well, that's obviously a problem, or, that kind of thing taken to an extreme. That would actually be a very interesting thing. I might throw that in some sci-fi book in the future.
Yeah. Well,
pretty cool.
It's funny too because it's completely arbitrary, like the way we draw our
maps.
Yeah,
no, and that would be the that's the whole
that would be
thing.
Yeah, exactly. But like, which is the top of the planet, which is the bottom? Well, take your pick. Like there's nothing to say. North is up and south is down. Like, you could sometimes you see a map that's flipped with south on the top.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly legit way of representing it, even though it looks really weird. So maybe we're on the bottom.
Yeah, maybe we are.
Maybe am I walking around upside down?
Well, just to kind of like build off of this, and the reason why I think about this is like in the Orville, the TV show Orville, which is an amazing show, by the way. They encountered this one species that had evolved with the concept that, like, every concept that we have when it comes to like astronomy, not astronomy. What's the thing where people read their signs in the newspaper? What's it called?
Oh, like astrology or like
astrology. Thank you.
Horoscopes and that.
Yeah, like like their entire like society was built around this concept.
Right.
And there was a constellation that had like a supernova, and one of the suns disappeared. And ever since that happened in their culture, anybody born under that star system, so that basically that month out of the year, they were always considered to be bad people. So So the entire culture was built around demonizing those people, and then intentionally trying to have their children born in not that time, but because they revered this calendar so much that what ended up happening is that the next month, the month that followed that, was the greatest month that you could be born in. If you were born into that month, then you would be like guaranteed success and wealth and all this kind of stuff. And and so
So you're
so what
aiming.
happened is a lot of these parents tried to aim it so that their kids would be born on that month, not the month beforehand. But whenever they were born on that beforehand month, which is why there were so many of them born around that time, um, they would end up being demonized. And it was like it was like it was a brilliant episode, and the concept of like taking a crazy like thing that we laugh about, right? That's a joke to us, that they then turn into this concept of like, no, 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 this is like totally normal, right? Like this is 100% totally acceptable kind of thing, and that's like, woo, wow, absolutely mental. Like that, and yeah, it was a really good episode. There was lots of like conversation that you can have on that. That would be it's so very interesting. But yeah, it's I won't spoil anything as far as the story. That's just the premise of it, and it's really an interesting concept. But yeah, anyway, sorry, a little off track.
Yeah,
Little
I don't
something
know how we got
positive.
on that exactly, but anyway, Game Notes says it's weird with the Assassin's Creed games. I don't want to play them as much as I feel like I have to. No, you don't. I
Yeah.
mean, there's
Well,
nothing. I played.
I mean,
I played Origins.
mhm.
I enjoyed it. Had no interest in Odyssey just because it seemed like more of the same. This one, I'm not sure. I have to see gameplay.
Mhm.
But it's like the thing with Assassin's Creed. You like it or you don't like it. It's formulaic. It's definitely like there's a lot of the same going on. Um, it's the same formula. They changed certain things. They've tried to make it more RPG-ish now. There's people have opinions about whether or not that's working, but it's it is what it is. If you like it, play it. If not, there's all sorts of other games you can play. But I don't think like I don't think it's gonna be water cooler discussion like, oh man, like oh man, did you see what happened? Like, what do you think about what happened in the latest Assassin's Creed game? Like, I don't think you'll be missing out on any particularly scintillating conversations.
Maybe.
Um,
I gotta say that this is like, I was a little tempted to play um, Assassin's Creed Origins. That was the Egyptian one, right?
yeah,
Because I'm a sucker for like ancient Egyptian like lore and stuff. I was actually hoping that it would be more ancient than what they did. I think technically, um, Assassin's Creed Origins, and this was where I was really miffed about this. Um, Assassin's Creed Origins was is it where it's placed in the time scale is closer to us than it is of the original building of the pyramids. Was
yeah,
that
it's
not
in the
true?
Cleopatra era. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
which is
Cleopatra.
we're closer to Cleopatra than Cleopatra is to the original creation of the pyramids.
So yeah,
And that's mental, right? Like that is
it's crazy to
almost
think
all
about.
of our recorded history, and that's not even half the time to when the pyramids were built. Like that's mental, guys. Like the pyramids were built when, in and around the time that Samaria was starting to like build language concepts, or sorry, not language concepts, writing concepts. Um, and it's like, yeah, wow, that is crazy. So yeah, I was a little annoyed with that. I kind of wish that they had gone the um, the ancient era, like in and around the like 3000 BC. Like that would have been cool. I think.
It would be cool to play a game set in that era, like when the pyramids are
Hmm.
new and all that. But one thing about
Like
where they chose to set Assassin's Creed Odyssey is that then you already had you had all of this history built into this game already. You had all of this culture and lore already established, whereas like, you know, I feel like it might have been lacking something, although it would have been cool. At the same time, it would have been awesome to play in ancient Egypt.
But I gotta say, I haven't been interested in most Assassin's Creed game time settings, because it's like, well, I mean, honestly, you live through it once, you're like, why go back? But most of the settings were like, meh, whatever. The one setting that I had been hoping and wondering about for a while would be like a Viking one. So for the first time, I'm actually somewhat interested in maybe playing this game, because I've played a lot of the Assassin's Creed games. I have never finished them, and I haven't really spent a lot of time in them. But I got to say that Vikings, Valhalla, you know, I really like I'm a huge fan of like Viking lore. Like I'm a pretty big buff on it. Did we want to get into some of the history, or do you want to save that for
Maybe a little. I let's see how the time goes for the rest of this. We're an hour in already, but I do want to read a few more of the reactions.
Sure.
Here. I want to talk specifically about the reactions to the trailer, and then you can probably get some history stuff in there as well. Yeah. But yeah, so Reticulum also is on the same page as you. AC Valhalla might be the first Assassin's Creed game that I will play. And yeah, for me it would be the second one. I didn't play anything before Origins, but I was captivated by that ancient Egypt setting. All right, let's see here. There's so many chat messages that have scrolled by since I asked for the response to that. But
Sunglare, I just want to quickly comment on this one. Sunglare, Trials of Mana is a way better remake than Final Fantasy is. I completely agree with you, and I'm not going to change your mind because I actually agree. It's certainly more like they didn't change anything, not a thing in Trials. Like they fixed some bugs that were never intended, and they opened up the end game into more repeatable content that's more concurrent with the day and age. But aside from the original playthrough, you're playing through it from the first thingy until the last boss, the last intended boss, the last like story boss. The game is 100% what you had in the original. So completely agree. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No worries about that. So, it was I enjoyed the Viking concept, the Viking sort of setting is intriguing to me as well. But I have a bit of an issue when I watched these when I watched the reveal trailer, and it was very well done. But it kind of starts off with the king of whatever the Brits or whoever was living in England at the time. Talking about how, okay, the Vikings are coming and they're like, these savages, and they're invading and, ravaging the land. And was kind of sat back, was like, yeah, are we playing as the bad guys in this game? Like, it's kind of like how I have a real hard time rooting for the pirates in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Like, Jack Sparrow's funny, and, he kind of reluctantly does the right thing sometimes, but like when it's like
but you at the same time, it's like, and I totally get this, because at the same time it's like do you know how many like poor families, where it's like, don't worry, mama, I'm going to go on this ship and I'm going to work real hard, and I'm going to come back and we're going to have wealth, and you're going to be able to eat and get those new shoes. And poor little Jimmy runs in. It's like, Jimmy, oh, such a little boy. Oh, I'm not going to see you grow up. By the time I get back from this 4-year voyage, you're going to be a man. You're going to take care of mama. And don't you worry. By the time I get back, we're going to be able to buy you a new crutch. And then he gets off and he sails off on the merchant ship, and then they never come back because a certain drunk pirate wanted his rum. It's really hard to like root for that.
Yeah. And so
It's
to see
really,
this,
really hard.
so
But
the trailer, the reveal trailer was a big, like, there was no gameplay or anything. It was a big cinematic, and the the combat was pretty brutal. But you're kind of like, the Vikings are like, that's your protagonist is one of the Viking characters, and fighting against this, the trailer cinematic kind of culminates with this guy in, this real big guy in hugely tough armor, fighting this one Viking dude.
yeah,
And the Viking dude's like just wailing on him and having no effect, and then the at the end it looks like the guy in the big armor is going to win and kill the guy, but then he falls down because the Viking dude has the sort of classic Assassin's Creed blade that shoots out of his arm, went through the slit in the helmet and kills the guy. And you're thinking, okay, so he is either the protagonist or one of the Assassin's Guild people. But this dude in the armor was the one I was rooting for, because he's just defending his home, basically, and his people. And I'm like, I don't know how to feel about this. I mean, maybe the setting will be like, okay, we're in this messed up culture, not necessarily that, the Vikings are all good and everything, but you're somebody born within this culture.
I've got kind of an interesting take on this, and it's an interesting because it's like a history. It's one of the most fascinating things in history. It is one of the most spectacularly fascinating historical and it changed more than one civilization, and the effects of it are super interesting. And what you ultimately end up having is you have them, because Vikings essentially decided not to become, they decided to stop raiding at some point. And the reason why they stopped raiding was because basically their people, their citizens, decided that it wasn't a good thing to do anymore. That it was better to, tend to their own stuff than to take things from other people. And there was, the Norse and the Vikings, they get a lot of bad rep because people think of them only as raiders and killer, raiding, raiders. That's not the case. A lot of them were traders. A lot of them were explorers. There was a lot of them that were farmers and settlers and that kind of thing, pushing into land that had never been, discovered before, let alone inhabited. And you kind of have to, nod your respect to that. But they did have this raiding culture. They did have this culture where they came in and they took things. Now, they didn't always just come in and butcher people left and right. That's not, from historical records. It's not. That is what happened every once in a while, but most of the time they would come in, they would scare people, and then they would take what they wanted, and then they would leave. They certainly kidnapped people, which, I mean, that was part and parcel. And one of the reasons why, and this is a really interesting thing, there was more blondes in Viking, heritage people today than there are in any other people group around the world. Blondes, blue eyes. And the question is, well, why is that? How did that happen? And the science and the history behind it is they would show up, they would ransack a village, and they would grab all the pretty girls. And their concept of pretty girls were blonde, blue-eyed. So they would grab all the blonde, blue-eyed girls from these places, and they would take them back, and they ended up breeding it into becoming instead of being a fairly recessive gene, it's now the main gene within their biological culture, which is really, really fascinating. Again, from a purely scientific and like historical, looking back on this kind of stuff, it's so weird. And then what's even more weird, and interesting is that these same girls then ended up bringing the new religion with them, and ended up, being the main driving force as to why they decided to stop raiding. Because it's like they had a crap situation, but they took it and they ended up changing the culture that they were now like forced into. So it's really, really crazy and really, really interesting to read about their culture. The other thing that's really interesting is their stance on warrior women, which I don't know how much you want to get into this, but this is a fascinating deep dive, and I
Well,
probably
I
want to
do want
do
to
it.
touch on it briefly because there was
Yeah,
there was a ridiculous Kotaku article about it.
yeah, absolutely,
So I mean,
absolutely
there was a
stupid
question.
article.
Ubisoft released a Q&A on their website about just about a whole bunch of various aspects of the game and of Viking culture. It's actually quite interesting to read through. But the very last question in it was like, okay, your trailer features, women Vikings, female Vikings fighting, and was this a real thing? In the and you can play as either a male or a female main character. You have a choice in the game. And the response was, well, historical sources are it's not 100% clear if there were actually.
I completely disagree with that. I completely disagree
Well,
with the
that's what they're saying though.
yeah. Yeah, they I mean, and that's the academic thing to do, because academics are 50-50 on it basically. It's 50-50. Yeah, shield maidens were a thing. No, shield maidens were not a thing. And they're 50-50 on that. I 100% can, well, I mean, aside from the fact that I was there, I can totally attest that shield maidens were a real thing. And the main reason why they were a real thing, and the main source of evidence for it, is, I mean, it's not just the graves where there's women that are buried with tons and tons of weapons, and that have battlefield damage, both healed and non. It's not just that when you live in a frontier part of the world and your mate goes off on a long journey, that you need to be able to defend your home and do the hunting. Because again, I don't understand how, like, it's so stupid that people think that women were never hunters. It's like, no, women make great hunters. They have better eyesight than most men. They have the ability to see through camouflage way better, and it's also something that's far more common and far more likely. And it's not. I mean, a bow and an arrow, in the hands of any person, is a capable hunting weapon. Most of the time, especially if you're hunting within, like, a 10 to 30-meter radius, which is, where most bow shot kills are performed at. Um, it's fine. And sorry, yeah. So basically, it's like the concept is 100% accurate. But the biggest source of evidence for me is all their stories, where it's like, oh yeah, so and so pretended to be dressed up as a woman to avoid his enemies. And at no point do you have that going, well, that's a crazy part of the story. Do you honestly expect me to believe that there were warrior women around? It's like,
Because the Vikings are
that's
Scottish
never
now,
brought up.
apparently.
That's never, ever, ever brought up in the stories. That, like, whenever people are reading the stories, oh yeah, Thor dressed up as a woman to kind of hide from this giant, and the giant looked over and was like, oh, that's a warrior woman. It's a common day thing. It's something that people just see. And this is, wow, Polly's, thanks for that major super chat. Lots of Norsemen who came to England made settlements. Yes, this is also true. They were farmers and traders. Very true. AC Valhalla going to explore this part a lot, not just them doing the raids. Your settlement in England is going to be an important part of the game. Yes, 100%. And that's something else that is important to point out, is that a lot of the Vikings, they populated a lot of areas and created towns where there were none ever. It's not just that they were despoilers; they came in and they moved in. Thank you so much, Polly. Um,
Right.
Yeah, your polys don't mess around with that 200.
But here's the thing about that. Like, I mean, the stories are an important part of their culture, and they point to this in the Ubisoft article. They say that regardless of whether or not the shield maidens were real or not, the idea of warrior women was an important part of their culture. They had stories filled with it, and lots of legends and things like that. And so they incorporated that into the game, much like I imagine, they're incorporating the culture and the the way that these people looked at the world. That's what they're making the world to be. They did a lot of that in Origins too. The way the Egyptians saw the world is the way the world was.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, people got to remember that not all cultures were backward, weird, and stuff like that. Like there was, sure, there was a lot of that. There's a lot of like very like strict regimental cultures, but there were also tons of cultures that had, I mean, there was more, especially in the Middle East. There, like pre 1000 BC, there were a good chunk of cultures that had this concept of equal rights for all, and that had there's more than one culture that had systems of a judicial system in which anybody could bring a complaint against anybody else. This is not there's a lot of countries who want to like stand up and say, nah, this was the first culture that ever had this. It's like, no, it's been around for a really long time. So it's not just this. It's not a new concept. It's been a concept that's been around for a very, 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 very long time.
I feel like,
and especially within the Norse culture, we can see this because they were able to like hold land, make purchases, take people to court, and
well, yeah.
have
So it's not to say it's not to say that everything about their culture was bad. Like,
no, it's not.
And yeah, like I
mean,
realize
all cultures,
the
all
rating
cultures
part
have
of it. Sure, there may be some. It kind of stands out in the history, and there may be some exaggeration. I don't know. I'm not a scholar on this stuff, but I mean, it was the like Time Bean points out. How is this any different from other cultures that raided and took stuff from others? That you might play as in games, like you might play as a Roman soldier or various things. Yes, I mean, I agree with that in principle. It was the specific setting of it appeared like you were taking part in a Viking raid that bugged me. It was the specific setting. It wasn't just like I'd love to play as a person in the Viking culture. Like that seems really cool. But that specific setting bothered me. Now, I don't know what that represents with relation to the entire game. But, we'll find out. So anyway, those are just kind of my gut reactions. Definitely not saying, oh, this is going to be good or bad based on that, because it's impossible to say at this point. But yeah, like, it's definitely interesting. Going to keep an eye on this. And, somebody said... Reticulum. If you guys are interested to play a great game in Norse mythology with a female protagonist, I can recommend Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Yes, that game was really good.
A good one.
It's a slower paced game. It's more of an atmospheric, story based game with puzzling and stuff. If I recall, there is some combat to it, but it's definitely not an action based game. But the performance was amazing. I remember the actress that played the main character in that game won some awards for it. Her performance was quite. It was really good. Like just the whole thing was so well put together. All right. So yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on Assassin's Creed Valhalla and. May cover it on the channel depending on if you guys are interested and if the game is appealing to us and or.
And also, like, I'd love to get into more like the lore and not just like lore and history, like of Viking culture. It's something really awesome to like talk about. So
There
yeah.
are places that you can talk about that stuff on our Discord server if you're interested. Going to plug the Discord server again. Click the link in the description below to join. Say hi to us in the welcome channel. If you're not there already, you're missing out on some good stuff. All right, one final thing to talk about today. Summer Game Fest is, according to The Verge, a new industry-wide celebration of video games that will span from May through August. It was announced yesterday. It is, I think, already taking place, although it doesn't give a specific day of starting. But Jeff Keighley is involved in this. He's acting as a curator and host for pre and post shows. The lineup for content, and this is going to be all online content. The lineup includes Bethesda, Blizzard, CD Projekt Red, Electronic Arts, Microsoft, Riot, Sony, Square Enix, and a bunch more, I believe. I'm looking for the graphic right now. If somehow must have closed that tab by accident, but there's a lot going on. So like we had the GDC, South by Southwest, E3, Gamescom, all been affected by this the current world situation, and online only, like the live events where people actually get together have been canceled. But this is a new and interesting thing. The Summer Games Fest is it's an all digital event, and it's spanning several months. Like, it's supposed to go until August. But again, like a lot of these big companies have signed on to do content for this, and so this is a really interesting thing. And like, we just found out about it. It was announced basically yesterday, and so I'm not entirely certain what this is going to look like, but I'm imagining it's going to be kind of a series of online events, kind of like E3 press conferences, but they're going to be spread out over more time as opposed to all compacted into a few days. That's what I'm anticipating.
I've heard that Jeff will be going from place to place, doing like localized events, or be hosting like online events where they sit there and they talk about this kind of stuff. And he's got a big list of companies that are involved. So yeah, this is the competition to E3 that is probably going to end up killing E3. Like, if they were smart, they would have gotten on this like right away, but they didn't. There was too much infighting. There was too much political back and forth. And again, when I say political, I don't mean like, political. I mean like small cliques and groups and like, friends of
like power struggles,
power grabs and all that kind of stuff. That was something that happened right from the get-go.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we're going to end up seeing him hop around or coming up with some way. He's got Bethesda, Blizzard, CD Projekt Red, Electronic Arts, Microsoft, Riot, Sony, Square Enix. They got a couple other companies that are involved in this. I think 2K is in there. That's a great company. All so awesome.
Oh yeah.
Totally,
we love them as much
honest.
as the company that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast today.
Yeah, so it's a big list. It's a really big list of people
and
companies
too.
that are going to be there.
Like big companies, like not just a bunch of little renegade companies, but like big players, like all the people you'd expect to see at an E3. They've signed up for this, so that's really interesting. I wonder how long this has been in the works. We knew several months ago Jeff Keighley was pulling out of his involvement in E3, which was before all the shutdowns.
Yeah.
So I wonder how long this has been in the works. Like,
I think this has been in the works for a while. I am going to say one thing about Jeff that may be construed as a little controversial. The one thing that I don't like about what he's been doing is that he has been wanting to push away from the streamer aspect of things and the content creators, especially on YouTube, but more so on Twitch and stuff. That he doesn't want there to be these people because he sees them as a competition to industry insiders like himself, and he's not the only one. There's a lot of people who dislike that. Uh, I would say to E3's credit, but it wasn't a credit. It was a move that was designed to elicit, more money and fans. They were starting to embrace more content creators, mostly around the Twitch aspect, and having them involved more and more and more. Um, and to be fair, when Keeley thinks of streamers and YouTube personalities, he thinks of that one dude, that prank dude that they had on that choked up on. Now, some people said it was because his reader vanished and he hadn't memorized what he was going to say, and it was one of the worst like moments in the Game Awards history. It was um, not Game Awards. I think it was just general E3 stuff. It was a nightmare. Um, but that's not he's a prank guy, right? He's not a he's not an actual like yeah, he's not an actual like gaming content creator. So there's a little bit of a difference there. Um, but yeah, now again, E3 was doing that to kind of save their butt and to try and like, become mainstream again. But other people dislike that idea of having the content creators in there. Um, I'm more of a fan of having the content creators in there than I am having like Hollywood types in there or big journalists in there from these big mega corporations, which unfortunately we will be getting with Keeley, probably a little bit more. Um,
Yeah,
but it
hopefully it's
might be
not just a
handled better.
giant ad fest like the Game Awards has been lately.
Yeah. So I mean, it's going to be interesting. So the will this become the mainstay thing? I don't know. I don't know. Does it deserve to be? Again, I don't know about that. I have yet to see how we've seen how he runs the Game Awards, and I got to say, he does a pretty decent job there. Yeah, it's pretty ad heavy, but I mean, it kind of has to be. But at least he's done things like bring together the heads of Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft on the same floor to give away some of these awards and that kind of stuff, and to treat gaming as a cultural phenomenon that it is and it deserves. So from all of those perspectives, I can look at that and kind of nod my head and go, yeah, he's he's done a good job there. Will he do a good job with this? I'm hoping so. I'm looking at it positively, but again, I know his affinity towards the existing fame, right? Having the people, having existing people there to be that are already famous, having them there and just having them there. I don't know. He might end up bridging the gaming industry with Hollywood, and that might be a very bad thing, or it might be a good thing. We look at something like Disney Star Wars. That's a bad thing. We look at something more down to earth like Kojima, as maybe a good thing. Again, maybe not. It's up to you, but yeah. So
Cyberpunk
so yeah,
and Keanu Reeves, good thing.
yeah, good thing, right? That's a way better example, actually. That's a way better example.
But I mean, like, yeah, I kind of I like when I like that the games industry kind of has its own talent, and you can even get relatively unknown people like like again the woman that played the main role in Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade
Hmm.
Senua's Sacrifice. She was like, I don't even think she was really worked as an actor, if I recall correctly. She was involved in the industry in some other way, but
Hmm.
got this role because she was just had this unique talent. And so I like that aspect of it. I don't like the idea of it becoming institutionalized and having these A-list stars.
Yeah, which I do worry might become
And
more
like,
of
I don't know,
his
when
trope.
Vin Diesel was at the Game Awards, it was just so awkward.
It was bad, and he hyped it up so much. He's like, "Hey guys, we're gonna have Vin Diesel! Oh my God, is this 2004? I mean, seriously, is this 2000?
Yeah,
Go back in time because I'm not a fan of this dude. I mean, I can respect his work as an actor as much as I respect any actor for their work, which is to say, hey, you did a good job in that picture. Yeah, well, hey, want to hear my ideas on the local like political matters? No, 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 no. I really don't. Well, you want me to sing you a song about the problems that people are facing today? No. No, I really no. That's just no, no. Well,
yeah.
do you want me to show you my awesome house that I'm living in while all this craziness is going on? No, no, I couldn't care less. No, no. But and I mean, and that's not at Vin Diesel. That's at the whole like situation with with stuff that's recently gone on. I'm not singling him out. I'm just saying, generally speaking, actors are great on screen doing movie roles. Do I expect their life advice? No. No. There's a handful of them. I think Robert Downey. I think Robert Downey Jr. is somebody that people can learn from because he's he was an addict, he was an alcoholic, and he got over it, and he improved his life. It was it was a really big story back in the day.
It was, yeah, but I mean, he does not like it when people ask him about it.
No, but and because I don't think it's necessarily something that I don't think it was something necessarily that he would like volunteer that information. Yeah, I don't think it was.
But I think the point is though, like, yeah, okay, there are a few that improve their life, but still, if there's one demographic of human society worldwide that I would point to and say they are the most out of touch and the least identifiable as far as how normal people live, and the worst examples of how to run your life and how to be a fulfilled and happy and healthy human being.
Yeah,
it's frickin' Hollywood. Like,
yeah,
the film industry, not like there's normal people that live there too, but like the film industry in Hollywood. It's like the last place I want to get life advice from.
It's a lot of fake
in between their rehab stints. Like, give me a break.
Yeah, but there's other people who they work hard at their craft and they do a good job. And I've pointed this person out, Christopher Judd. He played Kratos. He does the voice of Kratos. He's a great guy. Met him on more than one occasion. He is a fun, crazy guy who just he has a great outlook on life, and he is a really great personality. Oh yeah, Henry Cavill. He's pretty good too.
There are yeah, again, and it's not to say that
we're not saying that all Hollywood actors are bad.
There are balanced people who work in the film industry and like actors and stuff who are relatively normal, of course.
And like I've said, with the female voice actors for V and Cyberpunk, you want somebody who's very well balanced, who has had a ton of life experience, who is probably one of the most patient people I have ever met. She's got the patience of a saint, I swear. She's probably one of the best. She's probably one of the best talents I've ever met personally. You want to look at a ton of other people. There's a director, and I cannot for the life of me remember his name. which is really terrible because I feel really bad about forgetting his name. He does documentaries and stuff, like hard hitting ones, and he is severely handicapped. One of the greatest documentary film creators I've ever met. And so this kind of stuff is like, this is good, and I mean that's good, but nah, I don't want more of these people involved in the video gaming industry. I don't want more of the Hollywood elitists in the Hollywood. Do I think some of them have good stories? Sure. Do I think some of them are good people and they can write pretty amazing books? Absolutely. Can a lot of them do master classes? One of my favorite master class. I don't check out a lot of them, but I did check out the Hans Zimmer one, and I gotta say, Hans Zimmer, he's the one who creates all that wonderful, amazing music. Guy's brilliant. I love him, and he's really funny. But no, as far as like general like Hollywood elites, less of them, please. And unfortunately, I think, I don't know, I just think that this is what we're going to see from Knightley. We're going to see a lot more of that kind of stuff. And
yeah, well, it could be,
like,
but I mean,
I don't know.
In any case, we'll see how this plays out. So apparently, the only one we know of thus far that's actually been scheduled is the Steam one, which is called the Steam Game Festival Summer Edition, set for June 9th to 14th. That's apparently part of this Summer Game Fest. Apparently, platforms such as Steam and Xbox will also offer demos and trials of some games for a limited time. So, bunch of stuff going to be going on this summer. So that's could be an interesting time. Could be lots more to think about and talk about while we're all kind of stuck at home.
The biggest thing that I would hope is that, and I know that these two guys know each other, I believe, but the guy who created NoClip, he used to be a journalist, but he moved into far more of a video production field, and I can't remember his name, which is killing me.
Okay. But the guy who does the NoClip documentaries?
Yeah, the guy who created the NoClip documentaries. He used to do game reviews and stuff like that. If they approach it from his style, I think that's really awesome. I think that's a good concept, because I mean it's a lot of like happy fluffy stuff, but it's like no. The guy does really good work, and he's Danny O'Dwyer. Thank you. I knew it's one of these like Irish things. So yeah, Danny O'Dwyer, good old Danny boy. He's done a really good job with his NoClip and just documenting the existence of gaming. If they were to approach it kind of the way he approaches stuff, this is what I would hope that gaming could really bring things together. Because yeah, it's really, really good to see that kind of stuff, and so hopefully they bring in more of that. But right now, like I said, I'm ambivalent. I'm not like I can see that this is probably going to end up replacing E3, because E3 is just a mess. It's a mess of people who haven't, for the longest time, haven't cared, haven't been thoughtful, haven't been respectful, haven't been, haven't treated people outside their industry or their realm of power like equals in a very long time. And that is not good. That is very not good. And that, I mean, it's a recipe for corruption, and it's like, nope, goodbye. I don't care about you. You dug your own grave. See you later. Hopefully somebody will learn from your mistake. Now, whether or not, Knightley's gonna be able to do this, I don't know. We'll see. I'll give him a fair shake, and yeah, hopefully they.
You keep saying Knightley. It's Keeley.
Sorry, Keeley.
Yeah, Keeley.
I see it as Knightley. It's your language. I'm just trying to use it.
All right. And I think that's about it for today. That's all we have to talk about today. But it's been an intense show, so thank you so much, everybody, for being with us. Thank you for the great conversation in the chat, for supporting the show by listening live or after the fact. And don't forget to slam that like button if you haven't already. We'd really appreciate that before you leave. Slam the like button. Also hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave comments below if you're listening after the fact. We would really appreciate that as well, and so would YouTube. It shows them that this is content that's worth watching, listening to. And don't forget to join the Discord server for tons more great discussions, and where you can stay up to date with everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. And a special thank you also to our Patreon supporters and channel members who help to make this content possible. Our big darn heroes on Patreon, Josh, Robin, Time Bean, and our 2 anonymous supporters there at that tier, plus the others as well. Everyone at the other tiers as well, we really appreciate all of you. And our channel members, Mr. Panzernick, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Night City Punk, and Terror K. Thank you all very much. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, or any of the other platforms that this podcast goes to, we appreciate your interactions there as well. And don't forget you can listen to the live show on YouTube Wednesdays and Saturdays, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. It really adds to the whole experience of this show. So yeah, see the Discord server for exact times and schedules. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash. On behalf of Subsidian, thank you all so much for listening. We will talk to you again very soon.